Hey there, Eager to Pleasers. Welcome back to the Eager to Please podcast. We are so fortunate to have with us today a special guest from Nashville, Tennessee, by way of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, a gal from my home state, Nancy Deckant, who is the founder and CEO of Discover Sooner, a company she started with the mission of helping the next generation of songwriters and artists expand their network of music professionals. Nancy, thank you so much for being here today. I'm very grateful.
Hey, thank you so much. So much, Natalie. I really appreciate you asking. And this will be a lot of fun for us.
Absolutely. So you are a woman with many talents, ranging from songwriter to publisher to educator to author to now artist manager. Yeah. The sky's the limit for you, really. Yeah. And I'd love to start off by sharing with our listeners a little bit about you and how the two of us got connected in the first place. So
that'd be great.
Jokingly, I feel like I knew about you before you even knew who I was. I was down here in 2020 doing a songwriting round that my producer at the time had told me about. And she was going to be a judge on, the judges panel. And she's like, hey, Natalie, show up, see if you can get in on the open mic round. And I was like, I really, really don't love performing in front of people, but okay, I'll go. So I went, and fortunately my name was chosen that night. I mean, the likelihood of that happening was like slim to none, but for whatever reason, it got selected. And so I was up there, and you, my producer at the time, and another guy named Jason Wyatt were panel judges. And I was like, so scared. I mean, I'm sure it was the worst performance ever. And so you had actually been talking about starting this company, Discover Sooner. I think it was like the first year that you were getting ready to launch it. And my name gets put on this list because I had signed up as an open mic guest that night and started receiving your emails. And then it just kind of went from there. That was my first interaction with Nancy Deckant.
Was that Nashville Rising song where you played that?
It was.
Yes. Oh my gosh, I've met so many people from there. And I write with so many people now from there. Write songs with you, Sammy Joe Meyer, Cody Clayton Eagle. So many people in my life came from that. And I sure never saw that coming. And I, of course, adore Keith Moore, who ran that, and appreciated him doing that. You walk into a room of songwriters and you say, I'm a songwriter, and they go, that's nice. And if you walk into a songwriter and say, I'm a publisher and I'm doing all these other things, and they go, oh, and those, so I did launch Discover Sooner in March of 2020. Right when the pandemic hit. Oh, that was cool. I don't remember you from that evening. As a matter of fact, I remember very few things from those times, but I would say that through the years, people have always come back and shown up back into my life in other ways. And I remember when I really met you, I think you came to town, and I think you joined Discover Sooner, and then I saw you in person out at the Commodore, and I was like, oh, this woman has got it together. She really does. She's not like some person who just, blew into town. She knows how to write a song. And, the quality went there before you. Oh, I'm writing with Mason Douglas, and I'm writing with the various people in your life. And I thought, those are high quality people, and they only write with high quality people. So,
thank you. Yeah. I've just been very blessed. You included in that circle. So yay.
Well, thank you so much. So, this is a big, like we call it campus, right? It's like a big college down here in Nashville, like a see on campus out there somewhere at a ride around or whatever. And what we never really expected when we became songwriters and came to Nashville is that we would not only write great songs, but we would meet some of our best friends in the whole entire world. And some people you write with are going to be absolutely your best friends and your go-to people. And you certainly are one of those for me. And I'm proud to say that I know I'm one of those for you, Natalie. So
yes, you are. I hold you close to my heart. And I know that you and I talk offline, not as frequently as I would like, just because our paths are busy and, things happen in life. I know when I was telling you about the podcast and sharing some of the themes that we were going to be talking about, one of them being this month's theme of the art of letting go. And I say that it's an art because there's a lot that goes into trying to organize the mess that we have in our minds that's constantly running.
Mm-hmm.
And wanted to see if maybe we could start diving into that.
Right. I love this topic. And I certainly have been through a lot of this issue of, I have a dear and treasured family member of mine, but the nature of our relationship needed to change. And I knew that it was impacting my life in a way that was no longer positive in the ways it had been in the past. And I had to make this, and I didn't know if I needed to absolutely let go of this person in this way or not. And I really struggled. All of 2024 was a rough one. The question is, I'm going to ask your question for you. You says, how do you know that you need to let go? And I think we all know when things are, when you're not happy, right? And you're not happy. Well, is it you or the other person? Or the combination of the two of you that has, and especially in these long-term relationships, that you go.
Yeah.
I mean, if you just knew somebody for even 3 months, that is one thing. If you knew somebody for a year and you knew you had to there's some people we write songs with, and after we've written with them, wow, we know, hey, we really love that person, but maybe their style of music isn't the style that is going to excite us in the kind of way that we want to, that we need in order to keep writing with them. And then we have to let go of them. And it's extremely painful, And if you've known them for a year, you have to be somewhat honest. It's not like you just wrote with them one time. Right. And then there's these really, really long-term relationships that we have, decades long, and we tend to want to just leave everything in place if we can, because it's been decades and it's hard to make that kind of change.
Yeah. You just get comfortable almost. It's like the unpredictability and the uncertainty is scary. And so I think that's why we struggle with letting go of things that are not serving us well, because we just get comfortable and used to, this is just how it is. So,
right. And when that pain of hanging on is greater than the pain of letting go, at least this time around for me, many, many times in my past when I've had to let go of someone, it was maybe a big blow up, right? And then you part ways, right? Yeah, or there's the long, slow, drawn out, painful one. When you're married to someone who's really not good for themselves or anyone else, and they're just not going to they're not going to really try to understand at all what's going on and why you're not happy. Your happiness is not as important to them as their happiness are to themselves. Right. And I've been with someone like that, and I, couldn't sustain a long-term relationship because someone said to me, well, you have to be with someone whose your happiness is as important as theirs. And I couldn't, where I grew up from, we didn't have that kind of consciousness. But all I knew was my happiness was not important to this person. And I was at that time, it's back in the 80s, right? I was really angry, right? Because he obviously didn't care and enough. And then when I says, hey, I can't do this anymore, then he was, and then it was a big struggle. So I'm kind of have had that kind of, the kind of breakup where ever afterwards, when you're not married to them, you're just so grateful for the kid that you had when you were with them. You're kind of like, no, nothing about that makes me want to go back. Right.
Right,
So,
right.
and then
At least there was one silver lining that came out of that.
that's right.
So when you talk about acknowledging you're at this point and you acknowledge that it's time to let go, how did you get yourself like mentally, physically, emotionally prepared to make that next step? Because I feel like that's where I struggle, is like I talk myself out of it, and that internal people pleaser or whatever you want to call it, you just remain in the situation of unhappiness or resentment or bitterness or whatever it is. So what was it for you that how'd you coach yourself out of
Well, I did not do this alone because I felt like by the time I just felt like it was so far over my head and
that?
there was so much at stake. I mean, I was one day on, the next day one day I can live with this, the next day I can't live with this. And I knew what I felt, but it was hard to hold on to how I felt. And I almost had to I call it the inner bargainer, right? My
Yeah.
inner bargainer, very strong inner bargainer. What I say, well, can't I just keep on going like I've been going? And, can I live out the rest of my life in this situation because of, X, Y, and Z? Right, financial security, this, that, the other thing. And it's always comes down to financial security, doesn't it? So I'm like,
Fair enough. Yeah.
hey man, I can stop, drop, and roll in this life after all these decades of living it, right? I know how to survive. I know how to, and I know how to thrive, right? I know how to build something from the ground up. I know how to take something that's just in pieces and work my way through one step at a time, and know that no matter how rough it might be today, tomorrow I want to feel a good night's sleep goes along, and a lot of prayers goes a long way. I mean, I can,
Don't I know it?
right, I
Man.
can do this life, and I'm not like I was when I was much younger, where I would just get depressed and beat myself up about it. Now I know better, right? I'm like, I cannot, I'm really allowed to feel what I feel, but my inner bargainer brought up all of the issues that may, like maybe this person can make this change, and maybe, and think about all that, all the past that you're crumbling in your hands, and think about how hard it's going to be for that person, and to the complete kind of neglect to how hard it has been to get to this point where I admit to myself that I cannot do this anymore. And like that has almost no value in my mind. And what is it? Why is this so hard for me to say and do? And what I really learned is that, like at work, I can handle what I have to say that is real a lot of times. Some things easier than others, but for most part with people I work with at a distance, I can do that. I can be honest and, gently honest, right? I've learned how to be more, and realize they're just right. And you say, well, this, and hopefully the other person is going to say, oh, hey, you did this. And I'll go, oh, I didn't mean to do that. And hey, maybe you did a little something here that didn't sit quite well. Well, your work colleague can go, oh, I didn't see it that way. Okay. Like we can kind of, if we're kind of grown-ups about this, we can go on.
Be in the middle.
Right. And, we could just do better next time. At home, there are different, and in family, it's a different scenario. There's so much more at stake. And so I just really found, for me, the greatest issue was, my fear of saying it out loud, my fear of saying what I needed out loud. Oh my God. Eager to please. Talk about eager to please and codependency. Okay. So I couldn't do it. So I went to a counselor. Why can't I do it? What's holding me back? When I did manage to break through that, I felt like the heavens parted up, the birds were tweeting, the hurricane was gone, the sky was blue, and that would be quickly smothered by the fear of having to do it again.
All that work. I know.
Okay, so what is it that's holding me back from doing that? And I hope I'm answering this question. So I could give you a lot of things on the outside that were cautionary tales. Don't do it because of this, that, and the other thing. But the biggest one was the one I was looking at in the mirror.
You got in your own way. I know. I know.
I got to go heal my wounds in order to say what I have to say. And I did. I went and I got a counselor. Why didn't I get a counselor earlier? Well, where do you find one, right? Okay, everybody, big tip, people. It's called Psychology Today. Or say, I'm looking for a counselor in my area, right? You can get a couples counselor. It's just like Match.com out there, people. It is possible. And there were wonderful people there right here in my area. And you could tell kind of by the things that people said about themselves. And then you just have to find the dollars to do it. And when nobody has the dollars to do this, but if you can't function well in your life, then you're just going to have to do something different.
For sure. I've actually used Psychology Today, so I'm a big proponent of that as well. Right. So yeah, it's definitely a useful tool.
Well, yeah, I did find people, you can prescribe it, you want men or a woman or whatever. And it's not that I was crazy, but it is kind of insane. And you're like this, but it's not even insane. It's a hurt child in there that I need to go rescue. And I'm good at rescue. I'm good at rescuing myself. I've had to do it multiple times, right? I found I had an alcoholism problem in the 80s and, went and got help. Help is a good thing. But I learned, pretty much from my family, you don't talk about things when you're growing up and don't dare say what you really think. Your father's going to storm off at you and you're not, as a child, you're certainly not really allowed to say what you think, not in my family. And, so all the seeds are planted there and most of us in our family of origin. So,
yes. Yeah. I mean, you touch on something that we've talked about in previous episodes, which is why this podcast is so overarching in a lot of ways, because one topic bleeds into the next. Our family origin plays a big part in how we're formed as adults and how we handle situations, whether it's, tragedy or happiness or whatever. And this learning to let go, I don't know. I wondered too, is it like a control thing? For me, I didn't think it was a bad thing, but I guess there can be a negative aspect to control, because when you want to be so in control of your life and so perfect and so eager to do right by everyone, it's almost like a disease. I mean, I don't know, maybe not disease is the right word, but
honey. Yeah, you got issues too.
I know.
Welcome to the party, pal. We all do.
I know. I'll be your sidekick. So it's one of those things that, I mean, geez, you just want to dig in and not let go. So,
well, actually, what the precursor to me getting and really recognizing that I had a lot of the issues that I had was your song. I said yes when I meant no. And I was like, when you played that song, we had a songwriter retreat and you played that song. And I really got you. I mean, the song is so fabulous. And it made me start thinking. It allowed me to think about my own self. Where am I saying yes when I really mean no? And I mean, literally that song has a mission to heal and to wake people up in that
Oh,
way.
that means so much.
Really.
I love hearing
I
that.
know.
I mean, that's why we write songs. Music has such a power I don't think
Mm,
people realize. You're like, oh, you're a songwriter. Yeah, I'm a songwriter, but for me, it means the world when someone like you has said, I've heard this song, these lyrics have touched me, and you just shared that it has helped you
mm.
make a different path for yourself. So I'm paid back tenfold. It's not even released right now.
Oh
Yeah.
my God, you've got to get that song out there, girl. I know.
It's coming. It's coming.
Okay, yes, you can do this. Okay, remind me when I. But yeah, okay, but honestly, that song saved my soul, helped me
Oh,
save my own soul.
I
And
love
that's
that.
what, and this is what, and there's probably nobody, there are two people phenomenal in this town who write on that kind of personal level, and it's you. And then I don't want to mention the other person. I mean, like, they are really great. Like Bill O'Hanlon, he is really good. He's been on your podcast. He's really good at digging deep, man. I am, yes, but on different topics for me. And I mean, you got so many of your songs that you've done here, and I'm so proud of you. I mean, you're amazing. Okay, so what's the next question?
Well, why do you think it's so hard for people to get out of that comfort zone? I mean, speaking from a personal experience, like why do you think it's so hard when you know that something is not good for you, aside from it being comfortable and not knowing about the certainty that comes out of that? What
I mean,
what keeps you from
yeah, for me, it was very much so. I'm too afraid of what you are thinking to be able to say what I think. But I did learn that from that person that things can go askew pretty fast, man.
yeah.
But I mean, there's always physical reasons why, like we have financial reasons out there. But we don't want the trouble. We don't, it's trouble, and we don't know how to handle it after we've said what we've had to say, right? We don't know how to, we don't get a lot of training on how to handle. And I have learned this one thing: the way that things are between you and me is because of the people that we are. And, say everything is great, Natalie, um, wonderful. But if we get to a point where something needs to change, there was no other way that it could be than it is, given who we are. And I think in a way, I mean, this kind of goes back to Jesus saying, God forgive them, they don't know what they do. I mean, we all, if the wounds are driving the bus, right? If the wounds are driving the bus, we're going to crash. And if we're conscious enough, and if we want to be conscious about this whole thing, like in AA, they would always say, your best thinking got you here. Now you have to listen to someone else. And I feel that that is really true about relationships. If we have issues, you're doing your very best. I'm doing my very best. We've come to this point of it, try to get it when it's small, but then it doesn't change, and it doesn't change, and it doesn't change. And you cry and you plead and you beg and you wish, and it's not going to change. Maybe your relationship to the whole scenario has to change. One thing, as our friend Cindy Torres always says, it's up to you. It's up to you to change your mindset. We codependent people, we all should have a helping dose of Al-Anon, and letting people making their own decisions and not trying to get in there and control that too. But what can
Yes.
I do in this scenario to help me? And I usually, if I'm stuck, it's because I've come to the limits of my own personal abilities. This makes sense.
It totally does.
Yeah.
Well, it reminds me of the serenity prayer, quite
Yeah.
honestly, to accept the things that you can't change and to change the things that you can. I have to remind myself to go back to that because,
Mm.
I feel like we're cut from the same cloth. We can't control someone else's reaction or someone else's actions,
Right.
and we can only change ourselves. And
Right.
so once I learned that, like I know the Serenity Prayer, I grew up learning
Yeah.
it and memorizing it and whatever else, but to actually live by the words that's in it is a whole nother
Oh,
thing
yeah.
because I'm like, oh, okay, if you just change XYZ, then this whole situation will be happy. But you know what? I can't control what they're doing.
Yeah.
So once I learned to let go of that, there's that control thing again. It just, like you said, the heavens opened up and it's freeing. And it's like, okay, I will stay in my lane and I'm just so much happier. Like
Right.
here,
Right.
trying to like veer off like a drunk driver. I don't know.
Honestly, yeah, it's like that. I mean, the wisdom to know the difference. Like what I think usually when we're trying to control someone else is it's sort of like in your mind, don't you know if you do that, then I can't, that means something to my life. And all I can do is separate on some level. We're trying to hold on. We're hanging on.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Right. Yep.
The pain of hanging on is greater than the pain of letting go. And we let go. So that's
Exactly. So at what point then do you get to a place of deciding that you are worth it and you deserve better and you deserve to accept better standards for yourself rather than being bogged down by this baggage that feels so heavy?
right. That's such a great question because, not having this person in close proximity of my life every single day, is this going to help me feel better? Is this worth all the pain and the trouble of re-architecting this relationship? What can I save from what we have had? What is and I feel like in my most recent experience, I feel like there's so much positive in this person. And, if I could continue to be friends with this person, I would in a heartbeat. Right. And so
Well, that's a great sign.
that's a good thing. Like there are deal breakers in relationships. There's if someone is, so emotionally upset that they're, being mean to you with their words, right? And they're saying, or calling you names like Dr. Phil said a long time, deal breaker, no, there was none of that going on, right? So I feel like there are big old deal breakers. What broke this deal for me, right? And when there wasn't obvious, like,
Red flags.
there was all kinds of things. And, for me, I felt like there has to be room for everybody in a relationship. And this is what I've come to see, right? There's room for me to be me and room for you to be you and room for me to be seen and heard. And I'm a big practicer of me seeing me. So do I just need to find a way to be me, more me with this person? Or is there just no room for me because of the issues the other person has? So for me, those were the things. And the other person has, PTSD and this and that. And, those things are, and realizing those are that person's things. Those are not my things. And because that person has those things, I know how long it takes to work on those kinds of things. Because I've, being an alcoholic, I had to, back in the 80s, I had to go do the things. Spent years, meetings and figuring out what's under here. Why was I doing this? And, coming to terms with not just 12 steps, but a whole life.
Right.
You're
Right.
sober, but then you can still be crazy. So, like why was my work situations, it would come out there way back when. So I had to get a lot of
Mhm.
counseling for that, which worked, right? And I learned the art of healing my own soul instead of running away. There is no running away. The best thing to do when you have pain on the inside is run into it like a fireman, run in and then listen to yourself.
Which is so hard to do
Right.
because I was a runner as well.
Yeah, I'm a
So
runner. Woo!
we are we are
I
runners,
think we're
but
all runners. Nobody wants to talk about what really is going on here. I mean, just because it's so hard. Usually the words "let's talk" are
exactly. That's
the scariest words on the face of the planet, right?
right. Then something's going on. Someone's
Oh no, what did I do wrong? Right?
exactly.
Right.
Yes. Well, the other piece of that is it's hard to look in the mirror and admit that, you're part of it. It's not just flip the mirror around so everyone else sees it,
Right.
like
Right.
you have to deal with the
Let
stuff
me
that
tell you, I really didn't see that, how terrified I was to say whatever I had to say. I didn't see my inner bargainer. I didn't see my fear guiding me. And 5 years prior, if I would have just insisted then it would be different now, right? I didn't
Mhm.
see myself at work. And that's why a lot of people go to counseling together so everybody can see themselves a little bit more clearly, right?
Right.
And I feel like the best thing we could ever do for ourselves if we have inner upsetness, anger, then it is us. We got to go meditate. We got to go figure it out. We got to go be our own best friends. We got to take ourselves, our ragtaggedy self to our best friend who will, because really, what is a counselor? Somebody who is going to be a good mom, see things or dad and see things bring a new perspective to it. That's why girlfriends get together so they can talk all the time, right? But hopefully there's a dedication to the positivity of the situation and not just there to complain about, who you're with, but to help you get a break so you might see things less subjectively and more objectively and things like that.
Right.
We
Mm.
all have our confidants in our life. And, if you've got a good one, you can get it all before you without going to a counselor. Great. But I do feel like there's always more work to do, Natalie. Yeah.
Yes, there is. That's why I tell everyone to songwrite. It's good therapy.
It is. There's more work to do on our inner self. And nobody promised us it was going to be a rose garden. We all kind of got a lot of issues,
So,
and go get yourself a good counselor. That's
or a good friend, like you said. Yeah, I know.
good
You're
friends,
so
good
good.
counselors, somebody who can be honest about this kind of stuff, and then not and know that it's really big and important that we keep growing as we go through this life and don't get stuck. The people who get stuck and they're just going to sit in their chair and watch TV. We're just not in that environment, right? We're
Exactly.
achievers, we're songwriters. We just have to kind of keep the lights on.
Yes. The other part of that I just thought of when we were talking about the whole change piece is that you or me or, the individual has to be willing to put in the work because it's not just going to happen overnight. And that was something I always thought, I don't have a problem. I got my life all together. It's fine. I'm fine. Everything's fine. There is no problem here. But until you're willing to really dig in and do that deep work, it's like, nothing is going to change if nothing changes. I feel like my sister and my
Yes.
mom tell me that all the time.
Yeah.
Nothing's going to change if nothing changes. So there's that piece of it too.
That's right. Honestly, I am awake enough to know when I'm unhappy. I mean, consciously, you know what I mean? I've never been able, like for me, the question, can I just keep going on and not change the situation? And I just don't have any ability to pretend in my life on a daily basis. I mean, from the time I was a kid, I saw in my family of origin, no one wanted to listen to me.
Ugh.
they had to get rid of me because I was conscious, right? I said, hey, look what's going on here. This is terrible. And everybody's like, no, 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 no. And
Aw.
well, they paid the price of covering their eyes. And that's too
Mm.
bad, right? But
It is. Yeah.
I had to leave, right? I mean, I'm the one at 17 leaving high school or, finishing high school and not at home because the situation is too bad for me at home. And I feel like I couldn't I couldn't not see it. And it's been a blessing and a curse, right? Because if I could pretend as good as you guys, everything is the only place where I really just had absolute and utter denial was somehow or another alcoholism really helped me to completely not see that thing. But
It's a fog.
there's
Yeah.
always this denial hanging around. My codependency that led me to being too afraid to say what I had to say. How could I be so
Hmm.
blind to this? But all I know is I had the pain of it. And so if we have the inner pain of those kinds of things, just be a good detective like Detective Clouseau and the Pink Panther and Watson and Sherlock and go figure it out. You're the greatest gift that you've ever gotten in your entire life. And nobody's like you. And nobody knows you like you know you. So
So
you have
true.
to just
Yeah.
go try to, and on the other side of this decisions when we do this, I'm sure you have a question there for me. So I had my big decision, I made my big change. So now where am I at in this change, right?
Yeah.
It's a big change to change something this drastic. And I'm kind of when I'm scared sometimes. I'm scary. It's scary. I'm kind of scared
Scary.
sometimes. But, I've got good friends and I know that there's a sweetness in my life here. I'm feeling the sweetness of having moved where I worked hard to get this change, to make this change
Hmm.
happen. And there's a sweetness now. I don't know what that means for the rest of my life. All I know is for right now, I'm just writing more songs and doing my business
Good.
and welcoming life as it comes. And sometimes when I'm alone, it's kind of scary, but
It certainly can be for sure, but like you said, lean in on those people that are
right.
the gems in your
I'm
life. Yeah.
right. It's just like we all need a lot of friends to help us through different things in our life to be there and for us to be
Mhm.
there. This is not isolation, does not help you in a situation where you're making big changes. I've always done it like this. It takes 5 people. You need 5 people in your life when various changes come that you can go to that are going to help you keep making the change you need to make. I mean, like 3 to 5. You get
Yeah.
fired from your job or got laid off from a job in 2008. Like the 3 days after I prayed that prayer, dear Lord Jesus, please help me move away from this dreadfully boring job. And I got laid off.
He listened. He listened.
Oh, thank you, Jesus. That was very fast work. But like,
And then you're like, now what? What do we
right,
do here?
right. So I'm in my car on the way home, crying, and my called my stepmother, and she goes, Nancy, this is the right thing for you back in 2008. And, I started at that point. I was just kind of in bands at that point, but I embarked on a life as a visual artist and did
Mhm.
that for a long time. And then I knew that my songwriting got better and I was the NSAI coordinator and I knew deeply that I'd come to Nashville and I knew that I had experienced the greatest sense of belonging I've ever had in my life. And all I could do was I'd have to leave what I built in art and I had to do this songwriting thing. Had to. I mean,
Mhm.
and so I had many, many friends who helped me to mentally make that change, because I know you can say, I want to be an entrepreneur. I want to be a songwriter. I want to do this. And you can keep thinking about that the rest of your life and never do a thing about it. And
Right.
I had lived that out, not doing a thing, especially with art. I was like, okay, well, when are you going to take a class? Right. And I feel like, so every change that I've made, especially in career and home and family, I've done it with I've leaned on the people who will care about me and to say, okay, I want to do it, but I'm really scared. And they were like, well, well, let's see what's really going to happen here. So don't be alone in it. Get whoever you need to go on this journey with you, who you can trust.
Oh, I love that advice so much. I feel like I could have benefited from that 5, 7 years ago, because I would shut myself off from everyone and not let anyone in. And I got this, I'll handle it or whatever. And it is so much better to do it with your tribe, to get through whatever it is with your tribe.
And that's right. And over the last year of our lives that I've been sitting at your table talking to you about my situation where you took care of yours. Now I had to take care of mine, and I leaned on my friend Natalie for the parts that were good for Natalie to help me, and then multiple Cindy and so many friends and counselors to do whatever I have to do.
Exactly.
I remember to go have fun.
Yes.
I mean, it's a drag. Making these changes is just a flat out drag. Nobody goes, oh, yay, let's change everything, right?
Let's just blow it up.
Let's just blow up. Let's blow up the last 20 years here. Let's blow them up. Well, it was good. It was good 10 years ago. How's the last 10 years been? Not so good, right? What's in your control? What's not in your control? So I just feel like we can't really point our fingers at anyone else, because like they said, there's always 4 pointing back at you. Exactly. Like my mom, my sister, all that Al-Anon training they had, all that, really helped me to know it's about me. It has its rewards. Moving on has its rewards, whether it's with yourself, or with another person. Most important is the person inside you, your inner you. You got your child who's crying and wants this, your inner teenager who's rebelling and, wants to tell everybody to stuff it. And, your grown up part that reasonably anxious about the coming changes that I feel like you have to make, and all of that stuff.
Yeah, that's why I said right at the beginning, it is the art of letting go, because it is so messy.
It's messy. It's so messy. But like when I came home from the counselors, and I felt like I had my own words, like I had the power of my truth with me. Oh my God, it felt so beautiful just to say it out loud. That is something is so priceless. So whatever you have to do to get there. And I think God is sort of like, I heard it once, like God is like a chickpea, which I don't know much about cooking chickpeas, but if you cook chickpeas and they're in a boiling soup and they want to jump up on the side of the pot that they're in, and God is like, the big old spoon coming and just putting you back. No, you're not cooked yet, right? I'm in a chickpea. Right, chickpea jumping up on the edge of the boiling pot. No, it's way too hot for me. And it's like, oh no, you're not done yet, honey. We're gonna learn a few more things here before you move on down the road, right? So I would say we're always learning, I don't know when the next codependent wound will start ruling the roost here for me. Natalie, I don't know. All I know is I'm going to keep looking, try to be alert. The best thing we can do, I think, is listen to our inner feelings that say, hey, yeah, I think this is the right thing. I think I have a chance at true happiness here. And the happiness is kind of not, I mean, like you and I are both like not in a situation where we're just sitting at home waiting for someone to make happiness for us. I mean, happiness
Right.
comes from the choices that you make in your life and the ways that you engage in life and following your dreams and passions and things like that. And we do that. But then there's always this question, okay, in this past year, what have you done that is working and you're still happy with, and where would you like to make
Mm-hmm.
changes, and if you need to make these changes, what is holding you back from making these changes? And
Exactly.
you
Yes.
think you can or you can't. If you think you can't. But if you feel like, but what do you keep wanting that you don't have, that you're not taking a step forward for? And then what is that? That's probably, there's a good area right there for you to diagnose some real truth on your part.
Absolutely. Exactly. And what's keeping you from doing it, I
Right.
guess, is like,
Right. I mean,
yeah.
the greatest, I love this too. And this past year, so this guy, David Gandelman, I got him on Insight Timer, where I would listen to everything that David Gandelman said. And he had this class on soulmates. And he says, okay, there's a soulmate. They're out and they're the person that's going to get you, and they're going to always be with you. Okay, now look in the mirror. It's you. You
It's
are
you.
the
Yeah.
only soulmate you will ever have that is not going to leave you. Now go get in there and get to know that person, right? Because
That's
if
good.
you're not, if you think it's coming from the outside, it's not. It's absolutely not. It's coming from the inside. How do I nurture it?
Exactly.
It doesn't really take that many hours a day. It only takes a few minutes a day to ask yourself how you're doing. But you have to ask because life is so busy. And we
Yeah,
tend to put
it
those
is.
things off till Saturday. And then Saturday, you have to clean the house. Right?
Yeah, exactly. And then it gets
Right.
pushed
So it's
off.
not a big deal if you just don't treat it. You just treat it like, okay, how am I doing today? Okay, let's take a minute here. A
Little self check in. I love it.
little check in here.
Yes. Yes. Oh my gosh, Nancy, you have shared so many good nuggets today. I am so grateful that we were able to spend some time together talking about letting go, the art of letting go. And before I let you go, I wanted to see if you had any last minute words of wisdom that you
Okay.
would like to
Okay.
share.
Well, what I like the best is kind of what you said, Natalie, about it being messy. Okay. It's messy. It's messy.
Messy, period.
It's messy. But hold on to your truth. I mean, like there's this coin that you get in AA and says, to thine own self be true. And, I don't have to go to meetings because drinking is not a problem for me. Of course, I wouldn't mind taking someone to a meeting if I had a friend who had that issue. But I would say I don't. To thine own self be true. And how do you do that in a way that's loving to the rest of the world? That's not like, well, I have to be true to myself, right? Well, you do have to be true to yourself, but at the expense of others is never a good thing. And when you
Mm-hmm.
feel like it's going to cost someone else, well, then you have to look at the cost of not just the other person, but yourself. And it has to count. So make yourself count, people. Okay. That's what I'm still learning every day. Right.
I love it. Well, thank you, Nancy, so much for being here with us
Hey, thank
today.
you, Natalie, for asking me. It's a real pleasure.